Welcome to the instructional video for the NCCA 20 Field Collection app. My name is Tad Larson and I'll be walking you through this tutorial. Crews will be issued iPad kits for use during the field season. Kits will include an iPad in a watertight, life-proof case, along with other accessories such as a charging cord and an iExpand external drive. These kits are EPA property and must be returned at the end of the field season. The NCCA 20 app will come pre-installed on your iPad, but if you ever need to download it, it will be publicly available on the Apple App Store. Simply search for EPA NCCA 20 and it will be available to download. Currently, the app is not available for Android devices. Several other resources will also come preloaded on the iPad. There will be an Adobe Acrobat app that contains the field operations manuals, quick reference guides, as well as additional resources to help during the field collection. You will also have this video as well as the other instructional videos in the Photos app for reference during the field season. There's a calculator app to help with any calculations you may need. Cam Scanner is included in case you need to make a PDF from an image, and the iExpand Drive app is to be used to back up data onto the iExpand flash drive. Finally, Gmail is included and registered with the NARS user email address in order to submit data. When the NCCA 20 app is open for the first time, you will be prompted to enter the username and password. The username is NARS user, all one word and not case sensitive. The password is N, c, @2020. When you're logged in, you'll see the navigation window on the left-hand side. First, you'll select an assessment for the site you're working on. NCCA for marine sites, NGLA for Great Lakes sites, and NGLA Enhanced for Great Lakes sites where sample collection and sample processing are done by separate crews. Next, you'll see a list of states and territories that have possible sites. Select the state or territory where you're working. Next, you'll see a list of sites for that state or territory. Select the site you're working on. Then select a visit, and finally, you'll be given a list of forms that you will be required to fill out. You will see a blue header bar at the top that has a menu button on the left, which will allow you to get back to the menu window. You will see some information about the site in the middle, including the site ID, visit number, and protocol, as well as the version of the app that you're currently using. And you will see a Save button on the right that will be used to save the data you have entered on the current form. Underneath the header bar, the green title bar lets you know what form you're using. The forms consist of various text boxes, radio buttons, check boxes, selection lists, and comment bubbles. When filling out a text box, simply select the text box and enter data from the keyboard below. Radio buttons are used when only one selection is allowed, or for a yes/no selection. Check boxes are used when multiple selections can be entered. If you see a drop-down button, you can typically enter data into the text box next to the button directly if necessary. Selection lists are used when selecting from a drop-down menu, but drop-down buttons provide a list of often used items, like fish species, to make it easier for you to enter the data. When selecting from a list that has a search bar at the top, you can type in any part of the word to narrow the number of items to choose from. This should be useful when selecting things like fish species. We've included other helpful items to make data collection easier. When entering a date, there are Today buttons that will enter the current date, or Select Date buttons that will bring up a date selector so that the date will not need to be typed in. There are also Now buttons that will enter the current time so that it does not have to be typed in either. There are Info buttons that will bring up additional resources to help with the associated data to be filled out. Comment bubbles are used to relay important site-specific information. Pressing a comment bubble will bring up the comment window on the right side of the screen. You can fill in your comment in the box on the top of the comment window and save the comment. The comment bubble will change to signify that a comment has been entered. The comment will be added to the list in the bottom of the comment window so that it can be used again on other comments within that form. When filling out a form, be sure to fill it out completely. If there's anything that cannot be filled out, be sure to comment the reason why you are unable to do so. Before leaving the form, it's necessary to click the Save Data button on the top right of the header. Data on the form will not be retained unless it's saved. It's always good practice to save often while filling out data. When you click the menu button on the top left of the header, you will be reminded to save prior to moving on. When filling out verification, the form should preload the design latitude and longitude for the site. These text boxes are not editable, and you are to enter the measured latitude and longitude in the boxes below. Also, enter the number of satellites that were acquired to collect the GPS point. It's important to fill out as much data as possible, but a couple fields are critical, including the date collected and whether the site was sampled or not. Also, if the site was not sampled, the reason why must be put in a comment. When filling out the calibration form, again it is important to include as much data as possible. One important thing to note is you're expected to perform a quality control check at least once per week. If you are unable to do so, please comment the reasons why. When you open the hydrographic profile form, you may notice that the station depth has come preloaded from the verification form. Most often, the station depth will be the same value, but you are able to edit it if necessary. Changing the value here will not affect the value from the initial form. When filling out the profile, be sure to record all values for each depth. Once you've completed the downcast and are on the upcast, please be sure to indicate so by the slider on the left-hand side. If you need to add additional rows, tap the Add New Line button on the bottom. The new row may be hidden, so be sure to scroll up to see it. When filling out the sample collection form, be sure to include whether the sample was collected or not, and provide a comment if the sample has not been collected. There are many info buttons to give you examples as to the containers each sample type uses. The salinity value for the alkalinity sample comes pre-populated, but you are able to change it if necessary. When you begin the EcoFish collection form, select the method you use to collect fish. If you encounter any endangered species, be sure to indicate so. When you enter a fish species, you can use the drop-down box to select which species you collected. The list of species is based on the region that the site is in. You can also enter a species manually, but make sure that it's one of the target species for your region. You can click the info button next to the drop-down to find the list of species. If you indicate that the species for the fish plug sample is the same as the fish tissue sample, the name will automatically load into the box. When filling out the assessment form, be sure to leave any activities and disturbances that were not observed blank. Likewise, leave any visible trash that was not observed blank as well. Also, leave the dominant land use blank if no land was within 200 meters of the site. Finally, be sure to indicate that all categories were evaluated with both the visible trash and the activities and disturbances. When you open the tracking form, you'll notice the shipping instructions at the top. At the bottom of the instructions, there's also info buttons for a shipping table and shipping flowchart, which give detailed instructions. The first thing to do on the tracking form is to set the water chemistry sample ID. All other sample IDs are set incrementally based on this ID. Notice that anything set as not collected in the sample collection forms does not get a sample ID and is labeled as non-collected. The not collected buttons are not editable on the tracking form. If you need to change them, you have to go back to the sample collection forms to change it. The samples are grouped in their proper shipments. When it comes time to ship, check the To Ship button for each sample that will be included in the shipment. Then enter all the shipping details and press the Save Shipping Info button. You will notice that the To Ship checkboxes have disappeared for the samples that were in the shipment and have been replaced by the ship date in the shipped column. You can press the Shipped label to look at the details again. You can make any edits necessary in this window. And if you need to start over, you can simply delete all the information and hit Save. You'll notice that the shipping date has been removed and the To Ship checkboxes have returned. When you feel that you have completed a form thoroughly, you can press the Review button at the top of the page. This runs a validation routine which will help identify any missing data. If any data is missing, you can press the Revise button to go back and enter the data. If the routine comes back successful, you can press the Accept Save button to indicate that the form has been reviewed. You will notice that the Review button has changed from a red X to a green check. If you press the Accept Save button accidentally, you can simply press the green checkbox again to open up the validation window. Press the Revise button and the green check will go back to the red X. It's also important to note that having errors in the validation will not prevent you from marking it as reviewed. There may be instances where you're not able to collect all the data. Please make comments as much as possible when that occurs. When you've thoroughly reviewed the data and are ready to submit, press the Submit button on the top right of the navigation window. You'll notice the green checks and red X's to the right of the forms, indicating which ones have been reviewed or not. You are still able to submit forms that have not been reviewed. This is just meant to be a reminder. When you press Submit, an email will pop up with the data attached and already addressed to the correct address. You can simply press the Send button on the top right corner. If you'd like a copy of the data, you can CC it to yourself or anyone else. You are encouraged to submit data often. There's no limit to how many times you can submit data, so if you need to make changes or add additional information, you can do so and then resubmit. You only need to resubmit the forms that were amended. After you send the email, you'll be returned to the app. Simply press Cancel to go back to the main navigation window. Crews can submit different forms from the same site using different iPads, but they should not submit the same form from both iPads, or else the data will be overwritten. Occasionally, data may need to be collected for sites or visits that are not in the predetermined site and visit list. To add a site, tap your state in the menu window, and then tap the Add Site button on the top right of the menu window. Add the site ID, latitude, longitude, and the region where the site is located. The region determines the fish species list. If you do not know the region, just leave the default NA. The site will be added to the bottom of the list. To add a visit, tap the Add Visit button on the top right of the visit list in the menu window, and add the visit number or code. This visit number or code will then be saved in the visit list in case it needs to be used again on other sites. We encourage you to practice with the app prior to the field season. We've provided an entry in the state list called Testing Sites for practice. You're welcome to practice data submission from one of these testing sites. We ask, however, that you do not submit data from one of the actual sites prior to field season. Finally, we'd like to remind you to be respectful of EPA property and not write on or place stickers on the iPad or accessories. Also, we ask that you don't change any of the iPad settings or email settings or passwords. If you have any issues with the app or submitting your data, please contact me, Tad Larson, or Michelle Gover, and we'll be happy to help.